Hello and welcome. I'm John Kenel and this is Andrew Crosby, and this is the Property Development Club podcast. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since our last podcast, and what a couple of weeks it's been. There's plenty going on in the news, so we'll cover a few topics there with you. Then we'll talk a bit about the New Zealand property market, what's going on with governments and council policy. We've got a little bit of development news. I want to share some ideas on a radical way to reduce house prices. We will talk about Jason's development. That's still moving ahead well. And we've got some listener questions. And then we'll finish up with a book review. So let's get into it. First thing, let's start with the news. Andrew, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, John, and welcome to our esteemed listeners. We love having you on board. Before I start the news, John, mate, what were you doing in Vegas? You left me. You went to Vegas. What have you been doing?
It was. I actually did a little, just a quick podcast on about the trip. So if you want to see that, there's just a short 10-minute video. But basically, I caught up with Ty Lopez in LA. First of all, we did a mastermind session about 3 hours with probably about 40 people, which was very interesting.
So he's your mentor, right?
He's one of my mentors. Yes, he is. And then after that session, he had invited a whole lot more people. It was probably ended up being about 150 people there, all people involved in or heavily involved online in social media marketing. All kinds of different businesses, actually. There were people who are doing vitamins, people selling books, courses, really just about anything that you could promote online, marketing agencies, but really some quite eye-opening the kind of numbers people are dealing with in the US. It's just it's just a whole nother level. But no, it was met some really cool people, very positive environment. Everybody's looking for growth, supporting each other, connecting each other. It was really neat. And then went up to Vegas to film the course. So all the hard work that Andrew and I have put in, getting it all together and getting all the scripts prepared and all the rest of it, and I got to stand on the spot for quite a number of days and speak it all out. So that's all in production now. Lightspeed are busy putting that all together. So it's going to be a fantastic course. It's all interactive video. It'll be really neat.
You went by the pool every day. It was like 40 degrees, was it? 42 or 4 or something?
I didn't actually go on the
Vegas.
I didn't have
Vegas
a
in
second.
July.
It was 42 degrees.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. You step outside, it's like opening an oven. It's just nuts.
And any cranes in the skyline? What were they building stuff over there? What's happening in the Vegas market?
Not a great deal at the moment. No, not a great deal building-wise. But I think they're in the same sort of position as we are, a holding pattern, waiting for interest rates to drop.
Well, on that note, let's look at the market. Look, a lot of news has come out in the last week or so, and the main headline sums it up. This is my headline: house prices fall and rise. Okay, so the Real Estate Institute's house price index fell 0.7% from a month ago, but rose 1% from a year ago. Nationally seasonally adjusted median price fell 1.3% from a year ago and was flat to May. But in Auckland, prices rose 2.4% from a month ago. And this might surprise you. Auckland prices are up nearly 5% from a year ago.
Really?
Well, Wellington up 0.8% from May and up 2% from June 2023. Waikato and the Bay, they're down for the month and down for the year. So, the optimist in me says, because the big centres turn first, that maybe things have already started to happen. Now, a big leading indicator, which is sales counts, they're well down. But as John Bolton from Squirrel said in his blog, don't look at the month-to-month data. You can ignore it because last June we had 5 Fridays and this one we only had 4. So,
Okay.
I did a bit of a random survey while you're away, John, and I looked at all the new home listings on Trade Mean. There was 43 in Auckland, and 26 were advertised by negotiation. What's your thoughts on by negotiation? Pricing by negotiation.
Well, and I have not priced by negotiation on all the houses that I've developed and sold. I like to put a price on property because I think it's more fair for the buyers. I mean, if you advertise with a price, I try and set the price at the lowest price that I would take, and then I don't negotiate. So that's it. So I put a price on at $725, and that's the price, and that's what it sells for. And it just means that buyers know it's in their budget. They can take that to the mortgage broker, they can take it to a bank, and they know where they're going with it. So. But by negotiation in the market like you're talking about now, does it mean that people don't know what the prices are?
Well, they're too scared to put a price on, and not willing to put a low enough price on to get it sold, I think, is my experience.
Well, that's the feedback I'm getting with some of the agents that I've spoken to this week, is that we're now that. Like my view is, and a few people have expressed this now, that they're expecting interest rate drops in November, right? And we could potentially get a decent drop of 50 basis points, and then possibly another one in February and another one in April. So rates could really start to come off. So now the vendors who have been sitting and waiting to sell their houses are actually afraid to sell because the market might be getting better. So there's always a reason to sit and wait, isn't there? There's always a reason to not do anything. So, and I understand it. I mean, they're afraid that to sell and then house prices go up when interest rates go down, because that's generally what happens. But I mean, they just need to be quick, right? They need to buy and sell in the same market, and then it doesn't really matter.
Something I read, the ASB came out saying, a steady housing market recovery is expected. There is no such thing as steady in real estate. It's boom, it's boom, it's stop, it's plummet, it's flat, it's boom.
Yeah.
It's always the same, and it's New Zealand, it's New York, it's even Chile. The developer from Chile I had breakfast with this morning. It's the same deal over there. But on your inflation story, this is what inflation's done: up, down. 3.3% headline inflation. So she's coming down fast. And that includes 1.8% from September, which is still a bit of a hangover. So we could already be at less than 2% inflation. And
well, didn't food prices drop for the first time in about 6 or 7 years? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah,
I think it was 0.3% drop to the year to the end of June. So that's a good thing.
Look, I run the lamb chop index at New World or Countdown. And there's a big rise in lamb, and then it's sort of come back down. So, things are certainly stabilised. But, inflation's like that, but interest rates, that's it. We haven't moved them yet. So Adrian Orr, he's waiting for all the pain in the economy. He's waiting for businesses to go bankrupt. He's waiting for those property people who are still hanging on, which is, this is what I'm doing, still hanging on. He's waiting for them to capitulate before before changing the OCR. But things are happening. ANZ trucker meters down. PMI index is the lowest in 17 years. So Kiwibank, Jared Kerr, he comes out. He reckons it's going to go down in November. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be 7 more reductions after that.
Yeah, I saw that. He's pretty keen, isn't he?
That's game on.
Yeah.
That's game on. If you listen to Kieran Trass, property market cycle, he just says the pent-up demand is amazing there. So there's every reason to be optimistic. This thing could still linger for a while yet, though.
Well, that's why I'm looking for sites, right? I bought one recently, which I'm looking to develop in February, a 10-unit site. But and I'm getting consents on other sites and basically getting ready, because it could, when it could turn quickly. I mean, how long? I mean, there's a bit of residual stock in Auckland in the townhouse space. But, the first thing happens, those rates come down, right, and serviceability improves. And there's a lot of talk about affordability and, how income to house price ratios and so on. But in reality, it's the serviceability that makes the difference. I mean, you need to be able to, you can only borrow money if you can afford to meet the payments, right? So the banks have got very strict criteria, very clear criteria. So if interest rates come down, your serviceability goes up. So you can borrow more money, more people can borrow money. Then all of a sudden houses start to sell. And then once they start moving and the sales go up, then prices generally go up a little bit. And then it starts getting more interesting for investors because their term deposit rates are going down and their serviceability is going up, and they're like, well, maybe we can buy again. I mean, at the moment, why would investors be buying a property off the plans when they know they're going to have to spend $300 topping up the rent a week, right? So it's not an investment. It's just they're just buying a liability. But again, if interest rates come back, like anything like Kerr is talking about, then that things could change quickly. That serviceability change could be quite dramatic, and all of a sudden buying an investment property is more interesting. And I think that's where it's the number of new builds has dropped a lot, right? So the number of new consents has dropped off substantially. I think a lot of that could be due to investors not buying off the plans.
Yeah, well,
right?
that's why they're saying homeowners are buying more, but it's not. It's
investors buying less.
Yeah, it's a percentage of the actual sales, and it's bugger all sales.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and there's still there's this old thing where property investors are stealing homes from first home buyers, and they're competition, and they're this, that, and the other. Well, the reality is 97% of my sales over the last 20 years of new property off the plans have gone to property investors.
Yeah.
Right, and they've paid the 10% deposit. They've committed to purchasing. I go to the bank and raise money from their purchase to build the property. So property investors created 1,000 houses just in my business alone.
Okay, I think we nailed that one last podcast. So
Did
everyone listening, go back to the previous podcast. But here's two headlines that really F me off, right? Here's one: why Aussie house prices hit a new high and New Zealand's housing market is in a slump. That's an indictment of the way the government's run this bloody country, and how the current government ain't forcing Adrian Orr's hand hard enough. Here's another one for you. Home ownership in New Zealand is at its lowest rate in almost 80 years.
Wow.
And is set to drop further.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for this, So then there's no investors in the market. So everyone's becoming a renter. We're going to be a renter nation. Which is fine. Fine for your business. Fine for Simplicity's business. It's fine for property investors. But in the national good of New Zealand Inc., we want people to own their homes.
Oh, it's not just here. I just read that in the UK, rents are up 8.6% in the last 12 months, and it's because there are less buy-to-let investors in the market. So they're doing the same thing. Yeah. Yep, they're doing the same thing as we're doing. Yep. And
I was talking to a developer in Victoria the other day. Should I mention this last time? I can't remember. And I said, everyone in New Zealand's going to the Gold Coast. I said, what are the people in Victoria doing? He said, they're going to the Gold Coast. Okay, enough about the market. Look, government policy. It's pretty easy. These podcasts are damn easy because every week there's another government policy which screws with house building or construction or development. Anyway, what's happened? The government on 16th of July, and hopefully we can put a graphic up on this because it's got like 9 different headings. 16th of July, the government considers rolling back insulation guidelines. Right? And then there's a furore in the media, especially on Stuff and all the socialist side of it. Everyone's saying, you can't roll back insulation, you can't do this. So for those who don't know, about a year ago, the insulation standards were raised, and it wasn't just insulation, it's windows and protecting slabs. And the guts of it is, where I was, we did an analysis, and the construction costs went up about 2 to 3% for a real basic terrace home. So if it's a $300,000 home, cost is going up 6 to 9%. And that's the terrace without many windows. Add a lot more windows, and the price has gone up a lot more. And I don't know what your thoughts are, John. I see you're in the paper. Haven't read the article today. But yeah,
the headline is, "The horse has already bolted on insulation," says developer. So really, when I was asked for comment, I said that The H1 standards, it's already happened. There was a lot of retooling that took place around windows, especially. Architects need to come up to speed, builders need to come up to speed. Yes, it added a lot of cost. I think I quoted somewhere, $20,000-$30,000 per townhouse probably, in extra cost due to the higher installation standards. But it's kind of done now.
Yeah.
What's the point of rolling it back? And then you've got to retool all those, all the windows, and you've got to change all the rules again. And it's kind of, look, just, what I said was just don't bring in any more increases, instead of rolling back, let's just freeze it on insulation for now. And what would make a bigger difference, two things would make a bigger difference in my mind. One would be cutting interest rates. Right, if you want to make houses more affordable, lower interest rates, and the other one was what was the other one?
GST.
Oh yeah, no, infrastructure. Do something about council infrastructure.
Yeah, geez.
We've got sites sitting there we can't develop, and we're not the only ones. So. I don't think rolling back installation standards really is necessary, even though it is a problem, right? We have had a little bit of feedback about some of our townhouses being quite hot in the summertime upstairs, and some of the stats coming out are saying that people are spending more money cooling in the summer than they are heating in the winter, which is kind of crazy.
And there's also, I don't quite get the science, but there's a bit of a cold roof, hot roof thing go on, where if you increase the insulation, you don't let any hot air reach the inside of your underside of your roof, and what happens in the ceiling cavity, you can start growing mold because we've increased the insulation so much. So then you need to put ventilation in, which is more cost, another $3 or $4 grand. And if you spend $3 grand on a property doing something, you got to sell that for about 4 or 5 more to recover the profit margin, get the finance, the interest rates, everything, the consultant fees. My gosh. Everything else.
So actually, a big one though, just before we leave insulation, it's always discussed as insulation, but actually, it should be a regional discussion, right? I mean, I was just talking to someone in a builder in Queenstown, and he said if you get close to the wall in wintertime, close to the edge, from inside, you get close to the wall, it gets colder, so edge of slab insulation is a big deal down there, and increased insulation is maybe something that if you're in, Queenstown, it's a thing. Whereas, but in the Waikato, I mean, our new houses are insulated plenty. If anything, we need more ventilation. In fact, I've got a development underway at the moment, and we've got to stop on inspections because I went upstairs. There's a second lounge upstairs, and there was a window on the north side, but there isn't another window. So there should be a window on the back, on the south, for ventilation. So I had a window added. We've gone in for amendment, but we can't do any inspections on the rest of the dwelling now while it's processing. What's the point of that? Yeah,
crazy. Bureaucracy.
Yeah.
It's trying to improve the property. I mean, look, Auckland and Tauranga, what do I know? Complete waste of time. I'm in a 100-year-old house right here, and there's no heat pump on. Middle of winter. Tauranga, there for 2 weeks, last couple of weeks, well, almost 2 weeks, and not a spot of condensation with cats and kids and you name it. Brick and tile, built in 1970. So it is regional, and they've gone overboard. But like you said, I think the horse has bolted, and just stop changing shit, government. Stop changing stuff, please. You can change stuff for the better, like interest rates, but just stop changing regulation, because after we get over the initial price shock, the whole industry gets together and finds the most productive way of building whatever we've got to build. And look, John, in development news, a couple of headlines caught my eye. One of them says, and this is going back to the hotel you had, you're saying it was $170 a night in the CBD, and quite a nice, decent hotel a few weeks ago. And that's just not enough money for hotels to make money.
No, and when you compare to the US, I think the average price I paid when I was there in LA and in Vegas was about 1,200 New Zealand dollars a night.
Yeah, wow. So, the Auckland CBD's struggling. And in the paper they say, better deals for guests as New Zealand hotel revenue slides back to where it was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And that's, and I get there's been a big influx of rooms in Auckland. And that's got a bit to do with it. I was talking to a hotel owner in Dunedin about a week ago. He wanted some property development club coaching, and his little hotel's going great, going gangbusters. So there is a regional side to it. But what the other headline that was quite interesting is that a $75 million 16-level Moxie hotel by Marriott International is getting built in Auckland CBD at the moment by CMP Construction, and it's all modular. So, of course, I talked to the guys at CMP, and they said, come down site, and we'll talk you through it and show you what's happening. And, the Moxie's quite a little trendy boutique brand. I think they call themselves, playful, stylish and playful hotels. So, that's interesting. Anyway, and the last bit of development news is, as predicted, Kaingaroa has stopped now. So that stopped their own build. They're slowing down their own build. Well, they're just finishing their build program, and they've now stopped their buy off a developer program. So there's a whole lot of developers out there who've done a whole lot of work, and Kaingaroa have said, sorry, no money. We're not sure what we're going to do till November now. And you can guarantee that in November it ain't going to be any better either.
Wow.
I thought, John, did you have any issues with that outage in the States? You were just about to catch a flight when that whole thing went down.
Very, very lucky. It hit just as I flew out of LA, and I can only imagine how bad it would have got. We were on the tarmac for 2 hours in Las Vegas. 2 hours just on the taxiway, sitting there waiting to do a 40-minute flight. Completely nuts. We were late also in New Zealand leaving LA. So once that software went down, there was just chaos. And it wasn't just the US, it was all around the world. New Zealand was lucky. I think it hit here on a late Friday afternoon, I think it was. No, it was late in the afternoon. It wasn't a Friday, but it was late afternoon, so we had time to work on it after hours. But it was one company, CrowdStrike. I know the company because it was in my AI share portfolio. So I had some shares in it. It did really well. So they updated their software and that just took down services all around the world. And it just goes to show how fragile a lot of our systems are now, and how risky centralization is. When you've got these massive companies, because it had the biggest effect on Microsoft software, right? And of course, Microsoft is huge, and especially with governments and big companies. So it just took so many systems down, and you just wonder what would happen if if it was intentional. If there was some malicious software released, or maybe EMPs, those the bombs that take out power and so on,
electromagnetic pulse. Yep,
you'd have complete chaos.
Well,
and in fact, I wouldn't like to be around in a busy place if people didn't have their phones and couldn't scroll. I think a lot of people would go mad if they couldn't scroll for a few minutes, let alone for hours or days.
It did. My wife made a comment. She goes, "Is this it? Is this the start?" It's it was supposed to happen at Y2K, right, in year 2000. It was supposed to happen, and nothing happened. And now some glitch 24 years later. Yeah, scary stuff. Anyway, you made it back, so that's all right.
Yes.
Now, how are you going to solve the house price thing? What are you going to do? Build cheap houses? No.
Massive incentives for new technology, right? The construction sector is ripe for disruption. It hasn't changed in all the time that I've been involved in development. So if you could create massive tax incentives to attract, especially some of the tech sector, into construction, and look at things like 3D printing, robotics, or automation, we could massively speed up the construction of property, and possibly at the same time build more quality, more choice, more flexibility in design, and better environmental outcomes. I was just talking to a builder here who's they've set up a new company and they've started 3D printing walls, concrete walls. So it's very early days. So we'll have to see how it goes. But the problem is if you get one little company does a little bit here and another company does a little bit over there, it's not really going to move the needle. Whereas if we were to, if there was a very clear direction from government that we wanted to build more quickly, more cost effectively, more sustainably, then we could just, instead of a typical New Zealand way of doing tiny little incremental adjustments, we could just take one massive step and leapfrog into new technology, and build houses in completely new ways.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I've kept trying, but it's the cottage industry approach from many of the new technology providers. It's an industry that's difficult to change. Keep trying and failing. You should probably talk to people who have tried and made a success. This hotel at CNP are building, it's modular. They're craning it in. Right. Made one comment. Make sure you got lots of room to crane stuff in, and they're damn heavy. Tex Edwards, he's been on this bandwagon trying to convince the government to invest heavily in figuring it out, and other big companies have been involved. It is interesting. The more technology changes, the less the construction industry changes, right? And yeah, so I hear what you're saying. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, you'd need massive changes in regulation, right? Just to enable a lot of these technologies. There'd need to be low-cost loans or interest-free loans for technology, because there'd be massive uptooling, retooling and upskilling required. And then also development of new materials. At the moment, a lot of these 3D printing that has been done in construction is really limited to concrete. What you really want is to be able to print with recycled materials. Imagine that.
Yep, well, and old Shane at Simplicity has got a little bit of that going on in his system. And his system is, I don't want to do his marketing for him, but his system is using pretty basic technology, but in a very robust way to get construction costs down to $3,000 a metre for high rise, essentially. So he's got to build it yet, but on all accounts he's doing that. Okay. Whereas other builders are at $4,500, $5,000 a metre for mid to high rise. In New Zealand, mid to high rise is 6, 7, 8 to 10 story high. So yeah, I hear you. But what you need, and they had the opportunity, right? The Labour government with Kaingora could have said, just go down this road, full Monty, rather than the piecemeal approach that they did. And all they did in New Zealand is back a few little players, back a few Australian players, and they all went bankrupt on them. So, okay, interesting, John. How will that change your business? Do you care how it's built?
Well, yeah, I do care. I mean, how cool would it be if you could turn, tin cans into aluminium joinery? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? I mean, the cost would make a massive difference, and I actually care about, and I've mentioned it many times, about home ownership and the sliding home ownership rates. I want young people, the people who want to own their own homes, to be able to, and as I said, I'd much rather live on a street full of homeowners than all renters. And it's just homeowners are, there's more stability. They care more about what's going on. They care more about the community because they know they're staying long term. And that's not a judgment on anyone's, their personality or perspective or whatever, but it's just it's a short term versus long term view. So I want more homeowners. I also think it makes people more financially resilient as well. If you own your home for a number of years, then you're going to be in a better position than if you rent for years and years. I mean, someone emailed me recently, and they were just sort of looking for a bit of advice. They own 2 rental properties, and they were wondering whether they should buy again. But how do you buy when it's going to just cost you money? And they'll be maxed out and they're borrowing, and then they're just having to top up the rent. But they actually answered their own question in the email, because they'd said that the other 2 properties had been purchased 5 and 7 years earlier, and they now covered themselves. They
Yeah.
didn't need topping up. So, you know, it's about time. You know, home ownership's about time. And wouldn't it be nice if the young people who wanted to could buy their own home, and in 10 years' time, they're in a way better financial position?
Absolutely. And but those interest deductibility rules didn't help the topping up part. That's very sad.
No, it was
Well, everyone, we asked for your feedback, and by gosh, you've given it to us. So we've got some questions. Today we're just going to concentrate on one question from Casey. And he asks, John, I'd like to personally know more about the process of securing financing for developments. How long does it take? What are the sorts of things you need to be prepared with? Is it better to source from the bank or private, or perhaps a combination of both? Additionally, how much initial capital do you need for a first development? So that's an easy question. Go for it, John.
Yeah. The short answer, case by case. Yeah. The long answer. So what was the first bit? Was how long does it take?
How long does it take? Yep.
Yeah. So it varies significantly from weeks to months. Depends on the complexity of the project, who the lender is, who you are, you know, your track record with that particular lender. So yeah, it definitely varies.
And the what sort of things do you need to go prepared with, I guess, in talking to them?
Yeah, well, it's be prepared as you can be, really. I mean, the way I like to think about it is if I were the lender, right, and you were coming to borrow money from me, then, you know, I'd want to be dealing with someone who knew their business, right? So you really want to make it very clear from the outset that you understand the project that you're undertaking, you understand the risk, and you're focused on the downside, you know, not the upside. It's very easy to go, oh yeah, this project's going to make $1 million, sweet, let's go. What happens when things go wrong? You know, what is your contingency? What are your risks with this particular development? And they're all going to be a little bit different. So you want very clear plans, obviously plans for the development, site plans, floor plans, all that type of thing, because and ideally you have consent, you know, and it's going to go in stages. So you're going to buy development land. So then, you know, you'll have done due diligence. You'll have on a particular design. Let's say you're going to build 6 townhouses. So you've done due diligence. You know you can build 6 townhouses. You've got an indication of what it's going to cost, and then you're going to go to a lender to buy the land. So you're going to have a bit less information at that point. But the lender's also taking less risk at that point, because you're probably buying an existing house on an existing section in town. So, you know, it's easy to get a registered valuation, and if the development, you know, didn't go ahead for some reason, it could be resold as a house or as a development site. So you should be able to borrow, I don't know, let's say 60-70% at least to buy the existing site. Then you go ahead and get your consents, and so your resource, subdivision, engineering, and building. You may already go to a lender after you have your resource consent. Is a good time to contact lenders, because you've actually got something concrete. Then you can go, okay, here's a piece of land, and here's consent to build 6 townhouses, right? So you really want to go to your lender with as much information as possible. So you want your plans, you want your timelines, you want your costs. Very clear financial projections. You know, here's my model. This is what I think's going to happen. What else? Your CV. You know, you want to explain to them clearly who you are, what you've done, why they should be lending to you. And the best way to do that, well, the easiest way is if you have a track record. If you don't have a track record, then you really want to present everything you can, you know, show that you've done well in your career. And, you know,
and without a track record, you know, the bank wants to get their money back. That's the fundamental thing. They want to lend, but if you're a newbie, you're going to have to profile what you can. So you need a strong project team, right? The people on your team if you're not so strong, you want to make sure you have strong project team, strong governance, whether it's a QS or someone doing risk or someone guiding you or coaching you or whatever. Tell all that stuff to the lender because that's very important.
Statement of position, personal statement of position, you'll need that. Credit history.
The more money you've got, the easier it's going to be to get the loan, unfortunately. Just got to be well prepared and talk to a lot of banks. I mean, I would have talked to 20 people in private finance and large banks over the last, 2 months. And they all want to lend. They all want to get work. They're not talking to me because to have a great coffee. They want to lend their money out. So they're out there. And some of them are quite aggressive. They'll lend without pre-sales and let you build the projects yourself as your own main contractor. Others, like the big banks, this comes back to one of your questions. Is it better to source from a bank or a private lender? Well, the big banks, they like people who are stable and wealthy and sort of John's ilk. But if you aren't that, they're gonna look at you as a high risk profile, and they're going to lend you less. They'll lend you something, but they might lend you a lower loan to value ratio. So, like you said, John, it all depends. And banks will be cheaper. There'll be stricter criteria. But if you meet the criteria, you'll pay lower rates because you're lower risk. If you don't meet the bank's lending criteria, then you move up into private or second tier, and they will be more flexible, but they will charge you a lot more. And then a lot of developers will blend as well. So they'll do the bulk of their lending through a bank if they meet that criteria, and then they may borrow a little bit more, top up or close a gap with a second tier lender. A lot of it comes down to whether or not you have pre-sales as well. If your development's 100% pre-sold, well, you potentially could borrow 100% of the cost, assuming there's plenty of margin. That's why
it really,
That's why KiwiBuild got some legs, because they had underwrites, which was effectively pre-sales. The funders knew that they could go ahead with a government underwrite. That's not a bad idea. Gets people into their first homes. Obviously not enough.
But if you're starting out, I recommend getting in contact with all the lenders. I mean, over time, go and meet with them. Get to know them, build some relationships with banks, with second tier lenders. Be transparent. Just tell them who you are, what you're trying to achieve. What you've done to date. And Andrew just said, I mean, their business, they sell money, right? They sell money, so they want you to buy their money. So it's just a case of getting into position to be someone that they want to sell their money to. And the longer they know you, the better. I mean, if you go and meet with someone today and you stay in contact with them and you come back in 18 months' time and want to borrow some money, well, you're not an unknown. You've put a stake in the ground and you've started building some history with them, even if you haven't borrowed yet. I mean, time really. Time's a big factor, I think. If I was lending money to someone, the longer I know them, the safer I'm going to feel. If I've known someone for 20 years and they come and borrow money and they want to borrow money from me, I'm like, well, okay, this guy's stable. I've known him. He's got a job or a business, and I've met his family and whatever else, and there's a very good chance he's going to borrow the money and pay it back. So
So get out there and talk to them. Should we talk about Jason's project?
Oh yes, let's do that. I think you've been dealing with it more than me, and I've been.
John's the motivation guy. He's the right. Let's go. We're in Vegas now, Jason. Sort your project out. Bang, 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 bang. Andrew's okay, Jason. Let's just get your ducks in a row. You're not John Kenel just yet. Let's just not slow it down. Not slowing anything down. Just get your ducks in a row. Understand your site constraints. Get the consultant team chosen carefully. And actually not do it for you, Jason, but let you make the decisions, you figure it out. And it's been very interesting. And Jason's a great person to be coached, really. But even in the consultant brief scenario, and I've been doing this thing for 30 years, you ask the consultants 2 identical questions, and you get 2 proposals which take hours and hours of research and contacting them and talking to them to try and figure out to compare apples with apples. And you get to the stage like me 2 hours ago where essentially two different consultants who you thought were doing two different things are offering you the exact same service. But it's like the power bill company, the electricity companies. You can't decipher it. So, what I've been working with Jason is understand. It'd be great to have a clear brief, have as clear a brief as you can. Understand what the consultants are saying. Sit down with them. Understand every bit that they're going to deliver. And when they do deliver it, and he's got a geotech report and a survey, topographical survey underway, and he's got a few other things to come. Really understand them and go down that track. So it's been interesting. And then what we've done is we've sort of put the architect on hold until we've got our constraints. We sort of know what we want to go on site. And then once we've got our constraints sorted, Jason can then get his architect, let him loose, and because it's a tight site, let the architect really push the envelope within reason on his site. So,
Cool.
So it's getting there. It's getting there.
Very good. Very good. It seems it can seem like nothing's happening early on, for months and months when you're engaging consultants and the initials kind of tests are taking place, and maybe there's soil tests or they do a water impact assessment or whatever it might be, and you don't actually, there's nothing actually to show for that work. You just have to be patient, but at the same time, not too patient, because you need to keep things moving along, and sometimes it can take some time to engage these consultants and actually get them to do the work, especially if they're busy.
And team selection is crucial. These people they're going to be with you for the next 2 or 3 years on this project. So, get the ones that fit your project. Anyway, that's Jason's project.
Also, just a quick update on the Property Development Club course. So I mentioned that I've been in the US filming. We had a call with the video production team and our marketing team out of the US this morning. So things are moving on really well. We're hoping to have a first draft of the course, just a snippet of the course this Friday. So it's progressing well. So I think we're hopefully only 3 to 4 weeks away from actually releasing the course. We will be opening up a coming soon page though in the next few days, and that'll enable people to sign up to the course. Now I've had my arm twisted quite strenuously, and we're offering an 80% discount on the course cost prior to the course actually being available. So as long as it's coming soon and you sign up now, you sign up for an 80% discount, which is kind of outrageous, but I'm following the experts on this, on the people who make the courses and do the marketing.
The American way.
Well, that's the way they do it. I mean, they say this is how you get new courses up and running and you get people on board and so on. And I'm kind of looking at it and go, I put in all this time and money and effort and you're going to give it away. But hey, that's great. What we want is as many people to learn about property development as possible, to join our community, and this is a great way to kind of get it started. So yeah, hopefully we'll have that coming soon page up within the next couple of days, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's all go, people. It's all go. It's got the A team on the video call at Las Vegas at 7 o'clock this morning.
That was very early.
Well, how about a book review, John?
Right. So we were talking about funders. Well, my book review today is by Niall Ferguson, The Ascent of Money. I actually had the pleasure to meet him at a John Malden economics conference in San Diego about 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
I've got to be careful when I think Scottish. If he's not Scottish and he's English, then I'll get in trouble. He's from the UK anyway. I know that 100% for certain. And then he was a professor at Harvard I think he also at Stanford. Very, very smart guy. So he's written this book, and it goes right from the first coins in Mesopotamia,
Right.
like a very, very, very long time ago. It talks about loan sharks in Roman times.
Baghdad or something, is it? I don't know.
Well, there's a photograph here of a clay tablet from the 2nd millennium BC in Mesopotamia. The inscription states that Amal-Mira will pay 330 measures of barley to the bearer of the tablet at harvest time. So this is basically about a 4,000-year-old futures contract.
Wow. Yep.
So the really cool thing about the book is it's a story of, or like a historical story about money from coins right through to modern day, and the important effect that money has on society, on civilizations, and the power to make things happen. I mean, if you didn't have credit, if you couldn't borrow money, it would be extremely difficult to make anything happen. But one of the things I got out of the book is how there's really nothing new. Like, you often think, wow, we've got all these whizzy things, and you can transfer money on your phone, and you can do this, that, and the other. But I mean, they were using money thousands of years ago. They were using
futures contracts. Yeah.
Futures contracts thousands of years ago. I mean, in some ways, nothing.
You'd probably taking oxygen really down on a cave or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The pre-sale of a cave.
Who should read this book? Who should read this book?
I think this is and everyone should read this book. I mean, if you're listening to us, it means that you have some interest in property, in which case you have some interest in money and the financial system, and this book is it's an easy read. It's not complicated. I thought it was a very interesting read. And it's just going to give you a bit more knowledge and a bit more understanding of the financial system. I think it's a really, really cool book.
You put the cover on the podcast?
Yes, I'll do that. The Ascent of Money: A Financial History of the World, Niall Ferguson. So yeah.
Brilliant.
All right, so that's probably all we have for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please continue to let us know your questions. We did have another question about build to rent, so we'll come back to that. Anything else you'd like to talk to us about, like any questions, you want to get in touch, talk about your developments, then you know where we are. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, John.